Okay, so conditional statements allows our code to make decisions based on whether a condition is true or false. All right, based on whether a condition is true or false. So the source of this true or false, we normally have it from the comparison and logical operator. Okay, comparison and logical operator. So when you are asking someone, if it is raining, please pack in my clothes. Okay, you see that the person is going to make a decision, all right, based on a boolean, which is true or false. If it is raining or if it is not raining. Okay, so if it is raining, the person can be able to do that. But if it is not raining, the person will not be able to pack it. So this is a conditional statement. There has to be a source of true or false. All right, there has to be for a conditional statement to stand. If there is no source of true or false, it cannot stand, right? So in that particular instance, let's assume this is us saying, let me even comment all these things. Okay, let's assume this is us saying age, let age equal to 18, right? And we say something like okay, let's say if, okay, I will explain this syntax. If age is greater than or equal to what? Let's say 18. Okay, what can we do? We can say console.log console.log you are an adult, right? So this works, right? So let's assume we have 17 at this point. Let me run this code. Node index. Okay, so there is nothing printing in our terminal, right? Nothing is being printed. So we don't see console.log. But if I copy this console.log, if I copy this here, let's say I have it outside this place. Let me just rewrite it to this is cool. Okay. So if I run this code again, we see this is cool. So this particular stuff is acting on its own. There is no condition that is guiding the action. All right. So, but when we talk of conditional statement, we want to perform some actions based on true or false. Okay, there is a source of true or false, which we have seen the various ways we can have access to it through comparison operator. You can compare two things, it can only return true or false, or let me say logical operators using and or not. So we can be able to do these things and have access to that. And here you notice that this particular statement, which I just said, which is just like you making normal verbal statement, you see that this, what this returns is actually a boolean, right? This returns a boolean because this is us making a what? A comparison operator to check if the age and this, they are equal or greater, right? So what happens if I put this thing to be 18, all right? If I run this code again, we see two consoles here, console.logs here. We have two logs here. We have the this is cool and you are an adult, right? So that is the only time this can run. So this now runs based on a condition. So this is the basic idea. This is the idea of what we are learning today. Okay, so that you'll be able to appreciate when we are talking of other types. Okay, by the way, I'm going to just clear this a bit. Let me clear this. Okay, also clear this, and let me drag this down. Okay, so we can appreciate this syntax. Okay, this is a syntax. The syntax I've told you guys what it means, just a conventional way we can write something, okay? The structure, okay? So this is how we can write for this. So we see that for conditional statements, you give a condition and there is an action that follows. If you tell somebody, pack in the clothes when it is raining, okay? So if you imagine it that way, we can see that we can say, let it raining, okay, equal to true, all right? So we see that this, of course, this value, this variable here holds true for true value, right? So if we can be able to copy it, paste it here, so we are just saying if it's raining, right? What is the action? What is the action? The action is pack the clothes, okay? Console.log something like pack in the clothes, okay? Of course, this is what we have. So what happens, let me comment this. What happens when I run this code, right? Now, what happens is that you see that this is going to be evaluated. The only time the action can happen is when there is a true value, okay? For this example now, all right? So if I run this code, we see that we see packing the clothes. But what if I have false here, right? Run this code, there is nothing here again. We don't print anything. So this can only work under condition. So if I remove this thing now, we can be able to look at the syntax very well. So this syntax, we see we have the curly brace and what we call parentheses, okay? Parentheses and curly braces, okay? This first one is the parentheses, and this is the what? Curly braces, okay? What we have inside here becomes the what? The condition, right? But what we have here becomes the what? Action, right? So we cannot just remove this here and say it's raining, okay? It doesn't make sense. It's an error. And if we want to do an action, we can say console.log hello, okay? So you see, this is a wrong syntax, okay? It's a wrong syntax. So we must be able to have this one here, parentheses, and also do what? Have this one here, okay? But what even happens when we don't have this one here, right? Though I don't want us to be able to be looking at some other aspects, but just know that the syntax is this, all right? So we can now be able to look at different types of conditional statement, because at this point, I want to assume that we all understand what it means, okay? So if I write, let's say, conditional statement in JS, okay? So number one, if statement, okay? I won't copy this, okay? If statement, okay? Number two, we have if else statement. Number three, okay, we have switch, okay. Even before switch, let us talk of if else, okay, if else, okay, statements. Now, lastly, we look at what? Switch, okay. So this, okay, let me even add because this one, of course, this is what we are going to be seeing more often very soon. Ternary operator. We just say operator, okay? Operator, okay? Then we can now be able to just say number 5, switch. Okay. Now I want you to understand that the whole concept I've given you earlier, that is what all these things are trying to do in different ways, okay, and in different situations, okay, depending on what you need to achieve, all right? Because some conditions can be complex, some can be just simple, right? So in that particular instance, you know that, okay, this is what you want to achieve, right? So let's talk of if statement first. For this if statement, please, before you join any class, you make sure you mute yourself. That's very important. Okay. So for if statement, we have seen the if statement of 1. That is the first one I use. This is just like the normal one. Okay. The normal kind of statements you make in your daily activities. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So of course, for this if statement, this is the simplest form, right? And of course, it executes a block of code if the statement is true, right? So here we see that if this is true, this block of code is going to be executed. Let me add it in different lines so that it looks like something good, all right? So depending on the kind of the things you want to, just when you know that you don't even want to continue with any other thing, you just want this particular line, this particular condition. If it is not true, it is not true. If it is true, just this thing, that is what you want to do. You will not like to continue again, right? That is where we can use this. So as simple as it is, the next one we can look at is the if else statement, right? An if else statement will execute one block of code, right? If the condition is true, right? And another block of code if the condition is false. Because here we just said if it is raining, it should pack in the clothes, right? What if it is not raining and we want this person to do something else, right? Okay. Let's say we want somebody is coming to our house, okay, and maybe the person doesn't know road. Okay, the person doesn't know road to our place, so you need somebody to be at the gate, be at lookout, so that when you see this person, you can now bring the person inside the house, right? So, but if you don't see the person, what happens? You keep waiting until you see the person arrives. This kind of scenario, you see that this if statement doesn't satisfy it. Okay, it cannot satisfy it because this is only interested if the person comes. We are not telling this particular stuff what it should do if the thing didn't happen, right? Of course, it sounds somehow because by default we already know that yes, it's still doing something, because if this is false, it's not going to run this code, right? And if it is true, it's going to run this code, right? So it's just doing something at each stage. But there is a situation whereby we need it to do a particular thing, not just keep quiet, okay? Not just keep quiet as we have seen, right? That is where we can use if-else statement. If-else statement. For example, let's say this is age again. Let's say this is let me say 18, and of course we say age, okay, is what is greater than or equal to what, 18. So we can be able to say that this person is an adult. You are an adult, right? Okay. So if this is this, you know your normal greater than or equal to in mathematics, you can see have less than or equal to, right? The same thing. So we can still be able to do something like this, okay? But it depends on the logic you want to apply. So this is now checking if this age is equal to or greater than 18, right? So we say we have if else. So this else is another block of code for the false value, right? When it is false, this is what is going to happen. So what we just need is to add that particular else statement here. And of course, this is the action. So it's just a block of code like this. Okay. So this one is going to try to do something. But if this person is not up to 18 or greater than 18, else is going to execute whatever we have here. So let's all just say console.log you are not an adult. Please go back. Okay. All right. Let me save this, and of course, let me run this code. All right. So you see that the two console.logs, they didn't run. Okay. We only were able to run one console.log, which is this first one, and we can predict why. So if this thing now goes to 19, what do you think we are having? Of course, we still have you are an adult because this is greater than 18. If we have 20 and so on and so forth, we are still going to run this code. But what happens if we have 17? Okay, you see that this is going to evaluate to what? False. Thereby, this particular block of code is not going to run. Okay, it's not going to be executed. So what we have left is this else statement that is capable of is capable of running when the condition is false. Okay, because at this point, this condition is of course false, right? So if we try to run this, we see what we have. Okay, so we see what we have. We see you are an adult, all right? We still run we are an adult, and that is because there is a big issue here with what we've just done. Okay, so who can be able to point why we are still running this? Okay, who can be able to pinpoint why we are still running this particular line of code? Are you guys following me?
I guess because they could be, yeah, there's an issue here because they say let's age equals to 18, but when we did the if and if else statements, they say age greater than or equals to 17, which is
Okay,
not supposed to be. So it's supposed to be greater or equals to 18.
okay. Now look at where the thing is coming from. The condition we are putting here, I intentionally changed it here instead of changing it here. Okay, so what I changed is this particular value, and what we are just saying is 18. Okay, greater than or equal to 17. What is it going to evaluate to? Is it going to give us false? Is it going to say that this is false? Of course,
Uh, yes, it's
no.
going to say false.
18 is greater than 17.
Yes.
So why should it say false? It is true that 18 is greater than 17.
Okay. Oh, that's true. That's true.
You get the
That's true. It's
gist.
true. It's true. It's true.
So if I have put less than here, what I'm just saying is that 18 is less than 17, or 18 is equal to 17, which is what? False. But this is what we have, all right? So if we replace this thing with, I believe every other person got what I said. So if we replace this thing with age, have this one as 18 again, of course, what are we going to print?
It's going to print true.
Okay, so it's going to return true, and then we are going to run the first line of code, which is you are an adult. Okay, that's great. So let me, of course, reduce this to 17, the normal way. All right. So you see that this is 17, which you are saying that 17 is greater than 18. No, it's not true. That is false. Or
False.
that 17 is equal to 18. That is false. All right. So this line of code, this first particular code is not going to be called, taken to the second one. So let's try it. Let me just clear this thing. Okay. All right. So you see, you are not an adult. Please go back. Right. So do we understand this thing I just explained? Others, do we understand what I just explained? Are we together?
Yes, we are
Okay.
together.
All right. All right. All right. So we now are able to establish these particular concepts. Okay. Right. This works. But let's extend this particular concept. Let's say this is actually time of the day. You have morning, afternoon, and evening. So we need to greet somebody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Okay. These are different timing. So we have to check. Okay. Something has to be a source of true or false. Okay. Something has to be a source of true or false for these day, for these times of the day, right? Something has to be a source of true or false. So if we say something like, okay, let's say time. Let's say this is time, right? And of course, we see that, for example, this is 12, right? Okay, let me just add it in this 12 a.m., all right? And we now say this is, okay, a.m. or p.m., okay? Let's just have it like this. So we replace this thing with time, all right? So of course, this, we can now be able to say, let's say, okay, let's say less than this. All right. So, oh, this is not going to calculate what I have in mind. Okay, let me just remove this thing. Okay, let me just remove this. Let's assume this is, of course, this is from 12 is from 12 down. We say this is AM. All right. So of course, from let's say 24, 12 to 24, we have something like afternoon, evening. All right. So in this case, this should be greet us good. Can you guys hear me?
I can
Hello,
hear you.
others, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, let's say this is this. Of course, we have another one. This will not give me what I need. So let me just replace it with something better. Let me replace it with something better, something like uh, grades in schools, grade A, grade B, grade C. Okay, I think that will go well. So let me say const score equal to let's say 70. Okay, and of course we see that if somebody is having a score of, let's say, okay, let's have 70 and above, you give the person A, right? You give the person A. So we have access to something that can supply us the true or false question, because we are going to check if the person's score is above 70 or not. So if it is above 70, we have true. If it is not, we have false. All right. And also, we are also going to check if the grade is something like 50 and above. You can say from 50 and above, we can give the person what? B. Okay. That is 50 to 50 and above, but not above 70, right? Or if the person's grade is, let's say, 30 and above, that is above 30, but not beyond 50, we give the person C. But if the score is less, okay, we give the person what? Fail. But in our previous if-else statements, okay, we see that we only have two conditions. Okay, we can only check for two things, perform two actions, which is either true or false. It is either it is true or false. We cannot check multiple conditions. We cannot be able to check and perform multiple actions, right? That is where the third one comes in place, if else, if else. Okay, so let's see how we can be able to achieve that. It's just a combination of if else statements, okay? Just as the name implies, if else, if else. So we're just combining more than one if else statements. So first of all, we see that this is the condition. So we can check if the score, okay, is greater than or equal to what? 70. All right. So what are we giving this person? We say console.log grade A. Okay, I'm just going to copy this. All right, now if we place it here, we are defeated already, right? We are defeated because this is going to stop us from running other ones, right? So what are we going to do? Instead of having this particular block of code after the else statement, we are going to add another if else statement. Okay, we are going to add another one just like this, if else. Okay, I don't know if you get the idea. You see that this particular one, this particular place, I'm supposed to have a block of code like this for the else statement, right? But because we have multiple conditions and multiple actions to do, we want to extend it as many as we want. If else, if else, if else, if else, if else. Okay, so we can't do that by having this block of code. Okay, so what we are just saying is, if this, do this, else. If this, do this, else. If this, do this, else, as many as we want to achieve. So we just be repeating the if else, if else, if else. So instead of ending it this way, we just add another if else. So if else, if this, do this, else. Another if this, do this, because we have grade A, grade B, grade C, fail, right? So that is what we are going to do now. We say if else, okay? Are you serious? Why is it generating something like this? So we can say if else statement, all right? So what can we have here? So this condition here becomes if the score is a score, okay, is greater than or equal to what? 50. Okay, so what can we give? Grade B, right? So you see that we have ended this thing again with a block of code, but we still have to extend other conditions, right? So I'm just going to remove this, have another if else statement added to it. Okay, I don't know why this thing is adding extra thing inside this. Okay. Okay, sorry. So this now, what the condition we are going to have here, score, right, equal to score equal to greater than what? Let's say 30. Okay. So what are we giving this person? We are giving this person what? A C. All right. Now, the last thing we are going to condition we are going to check, of course, if you don't fall into this category A, you don't fall into this category B, you don't fall into this category C, that means that's failed, because we just have how many possible outcomes? 4. Based on our application, we just have 4 possible outcomes. Okay, is either somebody fails the exam, or the person gets C, or the person gets a B grade or A. These are the only things. So we cannot chain if else statement again. This S is going to what? Complete it. So we are just saying if the score is greater than or equal to 70, you scored A, you got A. If it is greater than or equal to 50, that's B. If it is greater than or equal to 30, that's C, else F. Okay, else what? Else. So we can place this here, say F. Okay, so I think, can we say grade F? Let's just say, fail. All right. So you see that we have multiple conditions here. Of course, we have multiple actions here, which we can be able to do. So, but let's just test this. Let's assume this person got 0 in the exam. Right? This is bad. Let me just give this person 30. Let me just give this person 29. Okay. Let's run this code. So what do we have? We have F. Okay. And that is because this first one tries to mix this comparison, okay, using the comparison operator, this comparison operator, to compare the two scores. And of course, this score is not greater, 29 is not greater or equal to 70. So this returns false. This one is skipped. At this second level, the score is still 29. And of course, 29 is not greater than or equal to 50. So this also returns false. This is skipped. The next line, the score here is still 29, but 29 is not greater or equal to 30, right? So this also returns false. This got skipped. The last statement here is that we just give the person what? F, because if a score is not greater than 30 or equal to 30, that means that score is less than 30, and 29 is less than 30. So that's why we are seeing here. So if I change this one now to 30, okay? If I change this one to 30, okay? Okay, are we even supposed to give a, no, let me change this into 45. I think this is not right in terms of, can be giving somebody 39C. Okay, so let me run this thing again. So we still have fail, because even though we have increased it, this is 30, so we still fall below 45. So even if we have 40, so this person still failed. Okay, so let me change this one to 40. I think this is where it stops. All right. So everything now at this point, we now got what? Grade C. That's because 40 is equal to 40. So this line gets called. But if we have something like 100, let's say this person smashed everything. So you see that we have grade A, excellent. All right. So this is how we can be able to achieve this. And this is the conditional statement we are talking about. You see that each action is based on a condition. And that condition we are talking about is just us looking for true or false value. In our last class, we have seen how we can get it through the logical operators or comparison operator, or even through the variables themselves, because I told you guys about empty variables, even zero, okay? So there are some ones which are, or let me say a variable which just hold true, okay? So that is how we can be able to do this particular stuff and everything goes well. Did we get what I just said? Is it a bit clear?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay. Okay. Others, please, if you got what I said, just indicate by just making a reaction. Let me see. Let me see a reaction, please. Are they with us? Okay. Do you have a question, Omorodion? You have question or you are reacting to what I say? Okay. So what we can do now, we can now be able to learn some other ones like the ternary operator, okay? Even though we call it ternary operator, it just the name it bears.
Hello,
And of course, this is, yes, I can hear you.
can you hear me, sir?
Yes,
Can you hear me, sir?
yes.
It's raining my side, so it's summer breaking. Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, please, you can drop your
So
question in the chat box since it's raining, so that I can be able to read it from
okay.
there.
What I was saying, the console line you said is 100, and the grade A is 70. The other one is 50.
We can't hear you again. Hello.
Can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you now. Can you drop the question on in the
Uh-huh.
chat box?
Okay, no problem. No problem, sir.
Because of your network. Okay, just drop it on in the chat box because of network. Your network is actually a bit bad. All right, so we've been able to understand this, and then we are now talking about ternary operator, right? You're saying that ternary operator is actually a modern way of doing things, okay? It's just a way we can do it in one single line. All these things we are doing here in multiple line, okay? We can be able to do it in single line. It's a very simple syntax, and it's actually what we are going to be seeing when, especially when we enter in more advanced learning and backend. So how do we actually achieve it? Ternary operator is just a shorthand of if-else statement, okay? You've seen how that syntax looks like, okay? So if I say if as, all right, this is the syntax for if-else, okay? And of course, this can be something we can be able to write in just a simple form without having all these parentheses, curly braces everywhere, okay? Even the if statement, if else, all these kind of things. So how do we achieve it? Well, we're just going to remove this. Then we have const, let's say age equal to what? 20. Okay. So we need the conditional statement now. All right. We need the conditional statement now. So instead of us saying something like if else statement, we're just going to define it in form of a conditional statement. So we are just going to have parentheses. Okay. We can say age is greater than or equal to what? Let's say 18. Okay. We now add a question mark. Okay. Give a string. Let's say yes. Okay. If not, we give another stuff. We say no. Okay. I'm just going to explain this syntax. Okay. Basically, what we have for this particular stuff is this question mark and what? Semicolon. Okay. Question mark and colon. Right. So what is the question mark? This question mark is actually the condition. Okay. Why this is what is going to happen if the condition and the truth value didn't return. Okay. So this question mark introduces the part that is going to be executed, all right, when the condition is true, right? But the colon is the one going to be executed when the question is what? False. So for example, if we had if else statement this way, right, we see that for this part, this is the condition, okay? This is the condition. And of course, this particular condition, once it returns true, this block of code, first block of code is going to be executed. But if it returns false, else statement is going to be executed. That is what we are saying here. This is the condition for ternary operator. This is the condition, right? This first one now is the condition which should return true or false. So if it returns true, whatever we have after the question mark is going to be executed. But if it returns false, this no is going to be executed. So this question mark here, it just stands like this particular first curly braces, right? So inside this place, this is where we have, if I can put something like this, okay, just for understanding sake, all right, you see that this is what we have like this, okay. Then if I should also put here, you see that that is what we have for the else statement, all right. I just want to make it more clear. So this is going to execute, right? And how do we actually print it? We just want to print one value. We want to print either yes or no. The same thing we are doing for this particular if this, but this place we are opportune to have the console.log here, okay, .log, okay. The console.log, we can say, let me say yes, okay. For this one, console.log, we can now say no, all right. We can now say no. So let me just remove this in so that it doesn't give us a bug. All right. Now, you see what we are doing here. I'm going to copy this, cut it entirely, bring it at the top so that the two conditions makes use of it. All right. So of course, I'm just going to have this age here, age greater than or what, equal to what? Let me say 18. Okay. So what I've written above and this thing, they are the same thing. The only difference is that we don't know how to be able to do this, console log this or this. Okay. So the one that is going to be returned, or let me say the one that is going to be logged out, is based on this condition. So what can we do? We can add this thing. We can add this thing in a what? A variable. Let's say this is for voting. Can vote. Okay. All right. We can add it in a variable like this. So what do you think is happening? We just having access to the value. Okay. This is a value. If I remove this, let me just add and do this. Okay. If I remove this and I remove this, you can see that even if I say console.log can vote, all right? What do you think we are going to console log? We are going to console log it, sorry, yes. Okay, the first yes, all these ones, great, is coming from the other example, and yes, this first one is coming from, of course, this, and this particular second yes is coming from where? This, all right? So this is just a variable with a value, but we can be able to determine the value. Okay, we can have multiple values that are dependent on the condition, all right? So that is what we are doing. So if we add this thing back, now add this one, say no. Okay, so you see that this is just a variable holding two values, which are yes and no. But it's not just going to print the two of them, of course, because of this condition. Based on this condition, it can now be able to print the one it wants to print. Okay, based on the condition. If this returns true, this is going to be printed. If this returns false, you see that is this. So it's either this or this, just like we are having. But if you look at the syntax, it's a bit simpler. And of course, it's just in one line, and we have achieved almost everything we want to achieve, right? So if I should run this code again, we still see yes, yes, right? And that is because age here is 20, right? And 20, of course, is greater than what? 18. So what happens if I have 10, right? So if I run this code, we see no, no, right? And that's because this conditional statement here is evaluating this one to no. This one also is evaluating it to no, because this one didn't run, returns false. That's why this was ignored, and this no was printed. All right. So I believe that is a bit clear. So it's just a cleaner way, and of course this is coming from ES syntax and ES6 syntax, and of course we are going to be seeing it a lot as we keep on going. It's just a way to do things in a very simple way. Sometimes you might just need a kind of logic like this in one line of code, which you are not going to be using this kind of big stuff to achieve. Do we understand? Hello?
I understand.
Okay, others, how about you? Okay, so the last thing we are going to talk about before we end this class is what we call switch. Okay, of course, you know that all these things, conditional statements, is just a way to be able to make some decision, right, based on true or false. Okay, based on some condition that we place the host of. Whenever we come across condition, okay, conditional statements, we know that we should already know that the action, okay, the decision is based on the condition, okay, and the condition how do we get access to that? We can have access to conditions from the comparison operators, logical operator, because these are what can give us true or false values. And for us to make a condition, a logical stuff, we see that we can be able to do that by that particular true or false. Okay, can you hear me, please? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. But sir, I think there was network is bad. Can't hear you,
Okay,
sir.
okay. But you can hear me very clearly now.
Yes.
Do you have any question with respect to what I've talked so far?
So there are some things I didn't understand. Like that last, I didn't. The last one you talked about, I didn't get it.
Okay, this ternary operator.
Yes.
Okay, did you get if-else statement?
Yes, the beginning one, like if s, then the one you said if s, like if you
If-else,
have,
if-else.
yes, if s, I didn't get that one.
Okay, okay. All right. So I'm just going to try and go through it again. All right. So you just have to pay very close attention so you can be able to understand it. So for if-else statement, that is what we have here. We use it when we have multiple conditions, okay? And they should be in order. When we have multiple conditions, we see that when we use if statement, for example, the first, were you in class when I explained if statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So we see that for the first conditional statement, which is just if, right? We have limitation because if we say if statement like this, right? You see that we are just saying that if this condition is true, let's do something. Okay. What if it is not true? What do you want to do when it is not true? Okay, we are not interested in that part. When we talk of just if statement, we are not interested. There is nothing concerning us with that. All right. When it's just this, there's nothing concerning us with that. So that is a limitation. Okay. But that doesn't mean that this if statement is useless. We are going to see it a lot. That is just how it was designed. Okay. It handles for just one condition and one action. And that is why you see that if something is true, if this particular place returns true, we are going to run this block of code. The question becomes, if it is not true, what do you want to do? Some cases you might want to do something, right? Some cases you might want to do something. For example, if you want this particular stage whereby, let's say, people comes to vote, okay, of course, is either they are above 18 or they are below 18. So if they are above 18, of course they are adults, they should be able to vote. But if they are below, what are you going to do? Of course, you are not going to allow them to vote. So you should ask them to go back. So you're able to take an action regardless of the condition, okay? If the condition is true, you're able to take an action, which is you are free to vote. But if the condition is not true, you are also able to take an action, which is what? You cannot vote. Please go back. So we cannot use this particular first if syntax to achieve that, because the only time this one can help us is maybe we are not even interested in telling them anything. So if the person comes, right, and the person is above 18, we can now be able to respond to them. That's okay, you can be able to vote. But if they are below 18 years, you see that we just keep quiet. That is what this if statement is doing. To achieve this kind of thing I told you, two conditions, right? You see that we are going to make use of if else. All right. This if first one should be familiar to you. That is the one that is going to happen if the condition returns true, right? But if it returns false, you see that we can now be able to handle that false. We can handle that false because we can do something. We don't just keep quiet. We can be able to say go back. We can be able to perform any other action. Okay? We can perform any other action. It can be, for example, let's say you want to access your dashboard, and your dashboard is built in a way that if you have not made payment, we should be able to, let's say, redirect you to a payment page. Okay? Or for example, you want to access your dashboard. Of course, you know that if you click somewhere and you are not logged in, you are going to be redirected to login page. Okay? So you see that in this condition, we have, I'm just giving you an instance. We have two conditions. It's either you've made payment or you've not made payment. And if you made payment, we should allow you to proceed. But if you've not made payment, we are not just going to just allow you to be hanging, okay? We are not just going to keep quiet. We should also do another thing. And that thing we want to do is to redirect you to payment page so that you should be able to make a payment. If you see it that way, you see that this if else is what can handle that particular stuff. So if I change this into paid, let's say paid, let me have it to be true. Okay, so we can now be able to say paid here. If this is paid, okay, we can say welcome to what dashboard. Okay, but if not paid, okay, welcome to payment page. Okay, or let me just say redirected to payment page. So we're able to take actions for the two scenarios. We're able to take action for these two scenarios. Now, if you understand to this point, we are now trying to say that there is a better way to write this in a simpler form. There is a reason why that particular syntax came to existence, and we are going to see it in the future. Okay, but just know that there is a better way we can do this. You see that here we have console.log 2 times, console.log, console.log. Okay, and of course we have parentheses here, curly braces here, curly braces everywhere. Okay, we also have if, we also have s. So this is a bit, and of course you can see that this has already taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines of code. All right, so we can rewrite this in a better way. And how can we do that? We can do it because we see that all these things are just a way we can be able to print something. We can be able to say const, okay, let me say location. That is where the person is. All right, let's say, let me copy this one. Okay, let me place it here. Okay, so let's assume this person now is in dashboard, so I can say console.log, okay, location. All right. So if I console log this, first let me just comment all these consoles here. So we can just be able to print, oh, I have a lot of consoles here, 100, okay. Okay. So let me just try and run this condition undefined. Why? Where are we saying condition? Condition. Okay. Okay. So it's coming from this. Let me remove it entirely. Okay. Let me clear this. Hello, please. Before you join any official call, the first thing you do is that you mute yourself and off your camera. Even if that call demands that you show your face, first thing is that you mute your mic and off your camera. It's very important. Okay, so let me just run this thing. Age is not defined. Where are we getting all this? Okay. Score. Let me see where we are trying to run one silly things. Okay. Let me just comment this. Okay, let me run it again. So we have welcome to dashboard. All right, welcome to dashboard. And that is just this. We are, of course, this is just a primitive data type having a string that we are just console logging, right? Now, we want to achieve this kind of stuff we have here, okay? We want this location to be under a condition. The location should be, of course, redirect to payment page or welcome to this, okay? So how do we achieve that? We can achieve that through conditional statement, if statement, but we don't want to use this particular approach, okay? So what can we do? We can now be able to say paid, okay? We give this, all right? So I told you that the introduction of this question mark is that whatever condition we have here, if it returns true, then what we have here is going to be the current value, okay, of this particular variable, okay. But we see that for this particular if else statement, we have if s, right? If s. So we have satisfied this if statement by saying that this paid, if it returns true, let the value be what? Welcome to dashboard, right? We have satisfied the first one. The second one is what is remaining, which is else statement. How do we satisfy else statement? By having a colon, all right? Then the next text or the next thing we want to do, so we can be able to, at this point, have, okay? So at this point, we can now be able to do what? Copy this, okay? And do what? Paste it here, all right? Okay, so we see that this is just a conditional statement because we are just checking this value, which is true. And then we see that we see this. But if this is false, we are not going to see welcome to dashboard. We are going to see redirect to the payment page, all right? So at this point, I'm just going to comment all these ones again. So we don't console log this one. I want us to be able to console log this location where this person is when this person tried log in. Okay, let me run this. We see welcome to dashboard. All right. So let's say this person have not paid. Okay. Let me run this code again. We see redirected to payment page. Okay. So this is just the same thing we are doing here. So if I comment this, and of course remove this comment here. Okay, if I run this code again, we still see redirected to payment page. It's still the same thing they are achieving. Okay, it's still the same thing they are achieving. So for this particular one, it's not just for if-else statement, right? It's not just for if-else statement, because this ternary operator can also be used for just if, all right? Just if. If we know that if has this syntax, if like this, so we're just interested in the positive part, we are not interested in the negative one, right? So what can we do? Instead of having a value here, we can just say that this is what? Null. Okay, we can just say that this is null. That is almost what we are doing here by just saying if statement. Okay, you're just saying that this is null, but we cannot remove this part entirely because we don't want it. Yes, there's going to be an issue. So you must have it, but if you know that you don't have to worry about the other part of it, you just put null. Okay, you just put null there. So whenever there is nothing, it's just going to take that null. So if I run this code again, condition is not defined. That's because I've added this in again. Okay. All right. So let's just try and run this thing again. So we have null printed here, all right, coming from this part, okay? So of course, that is what we already have here when we just say if statement, okay? Is that clear, Chisom?
Okay, yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, you need to also do some research about it. Okay, now the last part we're going to talk about before we end the class is the switch. Okay, of course, this switch, we rarely use it these days. Okay, but we still use it. There are some applications you build, you use it, right? But there are some, okay, you end up, it's actually very sweet, but you end up seeing yourself using if statements, or let me say ternary operators. Okay, so how do we present all these conditional statements in if switch? Okay, how do we present all these if all these in form of switch? So just that the name implies, we see that we are talking of what? Switching. All right. I don't know if I use the right thing there, but just bear with me. So if we have something like what should we use? Let day equal to what? Let me say Monday. Okay. So we can have the syntax is almost similar to if statement. Okay. Just that the keyword is different. Why if statement uses if? Switch uses switch. All right. So we can just say switch. So you see that I'm having already suggestions with switch statement. If I hit it, it's now going to give me, of course, a bunch of stuffs which we are going to remove for now. All these break stuffs. You're just going to remove it and understand what is going on first. Okay. All right. So this is the key. All right. And switch, we make use of switch when we want to compare a single value against many possible values. Okay. We want to compare a single value against many possible values. A single value against many possible what? Values. Okay. A single value against many possible values. That's what we are talking about here. Okay. So of course, this is the single value we have. In this case, is Monday, of course. So the key becomes the single value we want to use to compare against many possible values. All right, this is the key. So this one now is okay. So after this, inside the main body here, we have something called case. Okay. Now case is now trying to introduce other values. Okay, which we are going to be comparing the single value against them, right? So we have the values which we want to compare against them. So for example, if I want to check if the day is Monday, all right, I want to be able to say that, okay, this is Monday, okay? If it is something like Friday, I will say something like it's end of the week, okay? So of course we have defaults which we are going to see. So this place, let me say that the case in this instance is Monday, okay? So if the case is Monday, all right, what do we want to be able to do what achieve? Okay, if the case is Monday, what do we want to do? Okay, what do we want to do? So we can say console.log this is the okay start of week days. Okay, is it even weekday? Okay, work. Let me say it's not weekday because Sunday is there. Let me say work day, work week. Okay, all right. So we just this is the key. This is our starting point. Okay, so we just been able to check the case. All right, so we can be able to add some other cases. Of course, we have to break. Okay, we have this particular break that will stop the execution. All right, execution to be able to stop. Okay, we don't want it to continue. Once this case is Monday, we want to be able to do this, and that's all. We don't want it to continue, right? So we can have another case. Okay, so this you see that is almost the same with if else, if else, if else. We have another case. Okay, and of course this case we can take it to be let's say Wednesday. Is it middle of the week? Is it middle of the week? Let's say console.log middle of the week. Okay, so let's have another case. Of course, we have to break. Let's say break. So you end up having this kind of stuff. Case. Where am I writing? Okay. So let's have what's the next case? Let's have something like Friday. Okay. So what can we do? We can be able to say console.log what? Thank God it's sorry. Let me put this is it's Friday. Okay. Okay. So we can now be able to also break. And then after that, we can now be able to say defaults. Okay. Okay. And of course, this is what is going to be our defaults. Console.log. Okay. What can we even put? So let me even remove this. Let's say it's either weekend or beginning. Let me just say middle. Let's use the middle of the week as a what? Default. Middle of the week. Okay. So basically what we are doing here, you see that for this one, if I should be able to take this thing back like this should look a bit familiar to you based on our ternary operator. Okay. It's okay. So this is just us trying to do something, and what we are actually doing is that we are comparing a single value. Okay. If we are comparing a single value, okay, against what many possible values. Okay, there are many possible values we can be able to have, and there are different things we can be able to do when we have those particular values. Okay, so this is the actual value we are using, Monday. Okay, we are using it to compare all these things, because if it is Monday, we can do something. If it is this, we can do something. If it is okay, all right. So if we run this code, all right, we have, this is the start of the work day, because it matches this, right? So we can now be able to use Friday. Okay, so you see that we just use this single value to compare this day. Of course, it doesn't match. Okay, this is false. Of course, we can now be able to compare here. All right. So when we compare this, that is going to give us true, and that is why we are going to console log this. All right. So this is a single value used to compare multiple words, values. Okay, possible outcomes. Okay, so this particular one is just almost like if s, if s, if s, if s, but it is a single value now we are using. Okay, it is a single value to make comparison. Of course, a single value making a comparison against many possible values. All right. So do we understand what I just thought? Do you understand this? Of course, you need to make some research about it. You just need to rewatch it again, because it's actually a bit confusing, especially if you're just starting your journey as a web developer. But this is what we can be able. We can use it to have many different possible values, check many different possible values. In fact, this particular one, we can be able to rewrite this particular stuff in Switch. Okay. Do we have any issue? Do you have any issue, guys? Are we good to go? Hello, can you guys hear me, please? If you're okay, Toby.
Okay, this switch statement, how does it work? Does it switch the day? I'm trying to figure out how it works.
Okay.
What I mean, the
It
function.
doesn't. Okay. Now it doesn't actually switch the day. The day is the key. It uses to compare these things. Okay. It uses the day to compare these things. All right. To be able to determine the one that matches it. Okay. So if the day here is Friday, it's still going to compare with this. Okay. The first one. And because this is Friday, this is Monday, this is going to be ignored. Okay. It comes to the next one. It checks the, of course, the values. If it is okay, you see that this is going to be called. So the switch is not actually about, okay, replace this stuff with another thing. Do you understand? It's just us being able to compare using a single value. You see that this is just a single value we are using to make comparison between many multiple possible values. Okay, is that clear?
Yes, it's clear. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other issue? Do we have any other question, or we should end it, or we should call it a day? Any question? Okay, so since we don't have any concern, any issue, I guess we should all be able to go back to this video recording and of course practice, so we can be able to be good. And we know that today marks the end of the 1 month class. So our next classes, we're going to be having it live in our, we're going to be having it live, but you're going to be receiving everything in your dashboard. Okay. So please let us be prepared. This is the beginning. And the next class, probably you'll learn more interesting things like functions. These are what actually performs the action on web page. So we've been able to establish a lot of things here, and you have seen how even the comparison operators and the logical operators, they are feeding us what with true or false values, which we need to make a logical reasoning. Okay, so that is it. That is it. So let's see again next week, the same time. All right. So good night, everyone.
Good night. I wish I had the money to pay, but God to provide.
Okay, no problem. No problem. God will provide. Yeah, I love the sound.
100,000 naira is not, it's no small money.